Welcome to the Colts Squad Show. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. And to borrow a term from the great Knicks legend, John Starks, did the Colts just done do this again?
And I'm Zach Hicks, and the Colts are curing my anxiety on Sundays because I'm just relaxing on most of these Sundays, it seems.
I'm Alan Pinkett, former Oiler. Is winning becoming boring?
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Colts Squad Show, and thanks as always for making us your first listen of the day here on the Locked On Colts Network. This episode brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. And the Colts certainly moved some things around in a 40-6 win over the Raiders. I'm Derek Schultz. I've been a sports talker in Indianapolis for many years. I'm joined by Notre Dame legend, former NFL running back Alan Pinkett, and you everydayers know Zach Hicks, your resident film buff from Locked On Colts. We hope to have Jake Arthur as well, but he is currently in the bowels of Lucas Oil Stadium. Very happy bowels, if there is such thing as very happy bowels. Lucas Oil Stadium, after the Colts rout over the Raiders, we're going to be recapping yet another blowout win for Indianapolis and what it means going forward. Daniel Jones and the Colts defense. I know it doesn't necessarily look like it from the stat sheet. Man, Daniel Jones, impressive today. We'll talk about both that unit plus the QB really bouncing back in a big way after some disappointing aspects of last week's loss to the Rams. Week 5 studs and duds, and the not-so-silent A.D. Mitchell discipline. Just kind of closing the book on what was probably one of the biggest storylines of the week, as we did not see a lot of A.D. today in that win over the Raiders. But guys, kind of like you said, Zach, or I think actually, Alan, you said it, boring. Yeah, I mean, sure. I actually took some time to hang up some loose Halloween decorations because I knew that I only really had to have the game on the background. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, sometimes we like to come on here and talk about, oh, man, I can't believe they dropped the ball at the goal line, or, oh, man, I can't believe this or that, or they were playing for a 60-yard field goal. Sometimes it's nice to just get on here and be like, man, it's nice to just cruise. And that's exactly what the Colts did today, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, even in a game where they had another touchdown taken off the board for a penalty, another long touchdown, an Ashton Dulin kick return touchdown wiped away for a bad penalty on that return, they still won by 34. So, yeah, we can still talk about touchdowns coming off the board, Derek. We can certainly get negative all we want. But, yeah, as Alan said, winning's kind of getting a little boring here. The Colts might need to up the difficulty here on some of the opponents and turn that Madden slider up a little bit because – yeah, this is just another just absolute beatdown. And it's funny because I was sitting there at the end being like, I want the Colts to keep them out of the end zone. I want a non-touchdown against them in this game. I just don't want any touchdowns allowed. And I'm like, when's the last time a Colts defense has played this well? And I'm like, well, I guess week 1. They allowed only 8 points in that week 1 game against the Dolphins. So, yeah, it's just been a fantastic showing all around today. And Derek, I kind of feel bad for you because we have that segment down the road here where we like to do we do overreactions and underreactions earlier in the week, and then we also do the positives and negatives.
Studs and duds.
Yeah, studs and duds. Do we have any duds in this one? Like Joe Bacci had a rough game, but like outside of that, do we have any duds to talk about today? We're gonna have to change that segment, Derek, to just studs, I think, with this Colts team.
Well, what I saw was a very mature team, and I'll explain what I mean. When the Raiders took that drive and took 15 plays and ended up with a field goal. To me, that was like throwing cold water in the face of the Colts. And it sort of reminds me of, I did the Notre Dame broadcast for a long time. And every time we played Navy, you knew that with Navy, you would have reduced number of drives. You usually average 11 or 12 drives in a football game. But when you played Navy, you only average 8. So that put the urgency on you to take advantage of every single drive you had because they were going to be precious. And I say that because I think that after that Raiders 15-play drive, I think the Colts, being a mature football team, all of a sudden understood, okay, we can't waste a drive anymore. The first drive, 3 and out, just you knocking off the cobwebs and everything. But after that, I saw, more attention to detail, more urgency from the team. and just a systematic ass kicking of a Raiders defense that was really pretty good coming in. I know they had lost 3 games, but besides the first quarter, never heard Max Crosby's name ever again because the ball was coming out so fast, and I know it was driving the defensive coordinator crazy because you can't key on one guy, you can't double a guy. They are going to find the weak spot in the defense, whether it's man or zone. They're going to find Daniel Jones is going to find the open guy. He's going to make the quick throw, and he's keeping the defense honest because they are going downfield a handful of times. So you can't just, bring everybody in, compress the defense and just try to stop the run, which, the running wasn't as effective today. It was effective enough. There was one 16-yard run by JT that he was able to rattle off, but it keeps the defense honest. They can't really hone in on one thing the Colts do, and that's what makes it sometimes seem kind of boring. What they were 8 of 10 on third down, which should be celebrated, but we've gotten to expect, okay, third and it's always going to be third manageable. 3rd and 8, you feel good about the Colts' chances.
Yeah, no, it was a great bounce back game. And Derek, I want to throw this at you because you and I have been covering this team for a long time. And the whole Chris Ballard era, and obviously you go back further than I do. But when those first 2 drives happened in this game, the Raiders having that long 15-play drive to get points on the board, Colts 3 and out where they looked a little rusty on offense. Did you get that feeling in the back of your mind where it's like, oh, man, here comes that Colts letdown game? Here comes that letdown game where they kind of revert back. Like, even though we were saying all week that this is a different Colts team, we think they're going to respond well, it's hard to get that thought out of the back of your head. But I thought after that, like Alan said, after those first 2 drives of the game, it was 40-3 the rest of the way for the Colts.
Yeah.
It was an absolute beatdown, and they showed that they're not the same old Colts there.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that. We had mentioned this game. I think when we were previewing the Rams, we had maybe mentioned this game, but the ultimate example of that is what I always called the Tavon Austin game because it felt like the only game that he was great as a pro. And the Rams came in here, I think it was October, and it was 38-7 or something like that. And they had, it was a 1:00 game. You weren't thinking anything out of it. And they came in here and they just shredded the Colts. And yeah, 4th 3 and out of the season, right? To start the game. And then you let up that long play. And it was great that the defense stood up at the end and didn't allow a touchdown. But I'd be lying if I said that didn't creep in. I almost sent a tweet about, I hope this isn't a sleepwalk Sunday for the Colts, because clearly it wasn't with the way that the rest of the game played out. But, what I thought, Zach, when we're looking at historically, what I was hearkening back to during this game was, when is the last time that I saw the Colts routinely bludgeon opponents like this? And I think you have to go back to like 2009, really like the peak of the Peyton Manning era. And that's not hyperbole, because obviously the Colts had success in 12 and 13 and 14. The 18 team was a good team, right? But routinely doing this, you have to go back to like the Wayne Manning, those teams that were going 13-3 and 14-2. Again, we said it on Wednesday's show, but the biggest predictor to success is being competitive and or beating the good teams on your schedule and absolutely crushing the bad ones. And so far, so good for the Colts, because that's exactly what they've done through 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy to see because, like you said, you can't even go back to the 2018 team because that team had their issues. They started off really slow that season, went on a big winning streak, but even in that winning streak, they weren't doing this.
And the 6-0 game to Jacksonville, right? You just airdropped in there, a game that they sleptwalked through.
Right. So I agree with you. I think that there's a maturity level to this team. I love that Alan said that because there is this maturity level to this Colts team where they don't get too high, they don't get too low. And I think we even saw it last week against the Rams when the A.D. Mitchell drop touchdown happens. They didn't just fall apart. They still were really competitive in that game. And honestly, one OPI away from winning that game against the Rams. I think that speaks to how mature and just well-oiled this Colts machine is right now. And today was just another example of that, coming off a really brutal, emotional road loss, coming back home against a Raiders team that you're going to get a good punch from them to start the game because their season is on the line with them dropping all these games like this. So you knew you were going to get a good punch out the gate, but the Colts stayed ahead of it. They dealt with adversity of their own right in this game, losing your kicker in the first quarter of a game, that's tough, man. They had to go for two multiple times, and clearly that's something they need to work on going forward, because those 2-point conversions were a little all over the place for them here. But I think they responded to adversity really well, and I think that we just see this maturity level. And also, on top of that, just not only just being this mature team, but they're also a team that just goes for the throat when it's there. We go back to the Titans game a couple weeks ago. Colts are up by 3 scores in the fourth quarter, get a turnover against the Titans. What do we get afterwards? A play action deep throw to A.D. Mitchell, gets them down to the 1, and they go up by 4 scores in that fourth quarter. We see it in this game as well, where they're up by 30 near the end of the third quarter. They get that turnover on downs. What's the next play after that? A deep shot to Ashton Dulin to get them back inside the 5 and run for another touchdown. So you get this maturity that they never get too low during a game, but also they don't discount their opponents. They will keep stomping on you if they have to make sure that you know where you stand next to them. So this Colts team just has this different air about them. This ability to not get too low, but also this ability to, we're going to put you away when we have the chance to. So that's the testament of a good team, and they've been a really good team through 5 weeks so far.
Another thing I'll say is when another team makes a mistake, you have to make them pay. Yeah. And when the Colts blocked that punt, which was a total bust on the Raiders punt protection team, they were able to get in the end zone again. You have to make the team pay for those mistakes, and I think they did it. They did it twice. I guess the only one they didn't score on was the Latu interception. But you have to convert turnovers into points, which is just another example of a team being mature, a team knowing when to step on the gas pedal and when to ease off. And it was always good to see Anthony Richardson come in the game because we were able to see his athleticism once again by catching his own pass and getting some positive yards out of it. So it still keeps him interested, but can't say enough about Daniel Jones and his just efficient play. And the receivers, you don't see a lot of drops. And the reason you don't see a lot of drops is because of the placement of the ball. There was one play where they threw it to Ashton Dulin. It was a little behind, but Brady Quinn, who was on the broadcast, says that was behind on purpose. Behind so he wouldn't get his receiver killed from the safety coming across the middle. So those little nuance type things are separators, that keep you from winning and losing. Would you rather him, throw the ball and lead him so he can get knocked out? And then you don't have him for the rest of the game. The other one was, I guess, in the first quarter, the pass that Tyler Warren caught where he actually sat down or slowed down on his seam route, so that he could stay open, because if he had gone full speed, he would have run right to the safety. Ball probably could have been intercepted. But he had enough upstairs to know I'm open right here. Just get me the ball, and then I'll make something happen after that. So, again, another sign of a mature football team, just knowing, how to run this offense and how to win.
Yeah, and one note I want to add to your Ashton Dulin point there. It's actually funny because the play right before that one, he sailed it over Dulin's head, and Dulin got crushed over the middle of the field. Yeah. And then I was like, and like this is the thing too, because when it comes to Daniel Jones, he hasn't been perfect this year. We're not going to sit here and say he's been perfect, but he's been a steady presence for this Colts team that has been efficient and effective in this offense. So even when you get a play like that where he throws over Dulin's head, Dulin gets crushed over the middle of the field, and it's like, oh my gosh, he's getting Dulin killed. Very next play, almost the same concept, throws it behind Dulin. Dulin's able to go low, scooped off the ground, and get protected from that safety coming over the top. So you're even seeing, like, Jones is not a young quarterback in this league. He's a veteran quarterback, but he's still doing things like that where he's learning in the moment. He's adjusting his play, and it's just bouncing back from bad plays. You can get so much in your head as a quarterback when you sail a pass and your quarterback gets laid out because you tap him on the helmet in the huddle and say, that's my bad. I will bring that one down a little bit. Very next play to come back to that same concept, get it low to him, protect him, move the sticks, go down and get a touchdown. That's what it's all about for Daniel Jones this year. So yeah, Daniel Jones has just been awesome this season. Not perfect, but pretty darn close to it this season for the Colts.
We'll talk plenty more Danny Dimes. He bounced back in a big way, and so did a dominant Colts defense in a great performance against the Raiders. We're going to discuss as we continue here on the Colts Squad Show on the Locked On Colts Network. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for a game day, or that beloved local chain. It's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. And when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. I had to take my son to get a haircut last week, and we did so at a local spot called Black Orchid Barbers. We live over by Butler. If you're familiar with Indianapolis, Midtown is what we call it. And great dudes in there. They tell hilarious stories. They do a great job cutting hair, and they utilize Square for payments. So take this ad as an excuse to go support your favorite local spot and have yourself a day in the neighborhood with Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. Go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. That's square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. And we're back on the Colts Squad Show, a happy edition. Thankfully, we've had, of the 5 shows that we've done, 80% of them have been happy because the Colts are 4-1 after routing the Raiders 40-6. I'm Derek Schultz alongside Alan Pinkett, former NFLer, former Notre Dame legend. Well, still a legend at Notre Dame, but former Notre Dame running back. And then Zach Hicks as well from Locked On Colts. We hope to have Jake Arthur later today, but we don't know because, after the game ends, he has other duties to take care of there at Lucas Oil Stadium. Let's talk more about Jones and bouncing back because, again, and Zach, I think that I mentioned this sort of when, we had huddled together before the show. You look at it, 20 of 29, 212, and 2 touchdowns. You're like, yeah, okay, great, fine. 2 months ago, you would have been thrilled with that, right? But, the bar of expectations for Daniel Jones has actually kind of gone up. And don't get me wrong. I think that's a very good day. I just don't think that does proper justice to how in command he was of the offense. And it's not just about the throws and the completions and the passing stats. It's about checking into plays. It's about just finding ways to exploit that don't even really show up in the box score. And I just think that he did that. But it helps that I thought he had the throw of the year this year. I thought that dot that he threw to Pittman Jr. for the touchdown right before halftime was the best throw of the season that he's had. And to me, I grew up a Giants fan. I've kind of mentally divorced myself from the Giants over the years, but I have friends that are very active Giants fans. I watched a decent amount of Daniel Jones. I check in on them, and I've never seen him make a throw like that. And I've never seen him play at this level for an extended period of time. It just looks like a different player to me than what we've seen. And I'm not saying that to backtrack off our preseason takes and all of that. I just think sometimes dudes just come in and they're different, and whatever's clicked has clicked for him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing that I really want to point out about him is last week, the Rams, in a way, kind of put the recipe out there on how to slow down Daniel Jones and how to get after him a little bit. Win with 4 up front, play a little bit softer zone behind, and make him have to dink and dunk down the field. Make him have to throw balls into tight zone windows. Make it so the Colts can't just build these openings off of getting hot on against the blitz or throwing these man beaters at you. Make them have to rip passes in the middle of these zones. And this Raiders front 4 is not bad by any means. Max Crosby is a 1A pass rusher in this league, one of the best pass rushers in football. And they have a couple other decent pieces like Malcolm Kuntz and Jonah Luwalu, who the Colts drafted last year. They do have some decent pieces up front. But I think Daniel Jones just did a really good job of bouncing back from some of the struggles he had last week and just ripping these wide open, not wide open, but ripping these openings in the zone. We saw so many throws to Josh Downs where Downs was able to get his head around, get that ball in a little hitch route in the middle of this cover 2 or cover 3 zone and get the ball upfield and get a first down for the Colts. There was times where he ripped those seam shots to Tyler Warren, like Alan mentioned, where he ripped over routes to Doolin and Pittman. We just saw him just dissecting this zone that the Raiders had out there. And that was just a great sign for me because even though the Colts O-line kept the Raiders defensive line at bay for most of this game, it wasn't constant pressure. I still wanted to see him be confident attacking zone coverage after last week being more of a, up and down type of performance for him. So again, we get into this game where it's like, can Daniel Jones answer another question put in front of him? And it's a resounding yes. And honestly, to go to your point to start this Derek, is I don't think this was his best game of the year. I think it was a good game from him, don't get me wrong, but he missed a couple throws. There were a couple high throws in this one. There were a few times, again, leading Doolin into some hits where it's like you want to have those throws back. But it was still a really solid showing for him. Like, this was before the season. If you told me Jones was going to have a game like this, I would have said this was his A+ game. Like, okay, great. This is like, some of the best we're going to see from him. But because the standard he set through the first month of the season was so high, it's like, okay, we got like a B game from Daniel Jones and still won by 30 in this one. So it just speaks to how well he's played this year, where, he's able just to move the ball at such a high level. And I'm sitting here being like, well, I guess he could have had a little bit better of a game, but he was still a really strong game, like Daniel Jones just playing some really good football for the Colts right now.
Well, it brings into the question, does confidence lead to success, or does success lead to confidence? Because I go back to the preseason, and I remember, you guys talking about how terrible they looked in the red zone. They couldn't get anything done in the red zone. And we were talking about, I hope they are able to run the ball effectively in the red zone, because they can't throw it in the red zone. But I think over these 5 games, not only has Daniel Jones been precise with his throws and had a lot of success with putting the ball in the right place, but his confidence has grown. And, it's one of those things. I can stand a quarterback being a little arrogant or cocky, because, you can't be modest and throw into tight coverage. You got to be sure of yourself. So it has gotten to this point where he has enough confidence in the red zone to make that throw through that small window, because number one, he trusts his arm, but he also trusts his receivers, and his receivers have reciprocated too. Don't get many drops, and you're not going to get many drops with where he's placing the ball. So again, I don't know what the answer is. Does confidence lead to success, or does success lead to confidence?
Yeah, and one thing I want to add too is to talk about that throw that you guys have both alluded to, the one in the end zone to Michael Pittman Jr. I'm not even sure Jones attempts that throw 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. But when you are having the season that he's having right now, this comfortability in this offense, where he knows it like the back of his hand right now. He's got the checks right. He's got the ability to diagnose what the defense is given. You can be a little bit arrogant, you can be, and that's what I really wanted those first like 2 or 3 weeks, when it's like he's putting these great statistical numbers out there. But I want to see what happens when the zones get tighter, when you're in the red zone, because the Colts red zone offense struggled the first 2 games of the season this year. But these last 3 weeks, really, we've seen a resurgence from the Colts red zone offense, where they're not getting to the red zone as much as today they did. Today they got to the red zone whenever they wanted, but against the Rams and even the Titans, they didn't get to the red zone as often as they did in the first 2 weeks, but they were converting at a higher rate. Now if they have games like this, they're going to put up 40 every single week. But I think he's just playing confident. And like you said, Alan, is it because of just the new environment? Is it because the confidence is leading to success, or the early success this year is leading to confidence? I don't know if we're going to have a firm answer on that, but all we can really say is he's been successful and confident this season with the Colts.
Well, and it does help when you have a tight end like Tyler Warren, which we have to say congratulations, because he got his first career touchdown reception. And it is weird because he's been making so many plays, but he hadn't gotten into the end zone. And the play that the touchdown was scored on was like a no-brainer for Daniel Jones against a smaller defensive back. Even if the defensive back comes up and tries to tackle him, that's 260 pounds a man that you got to try to bring down when you're weighing less than 200 pounds, I think. And so even I felt bad for him, because sometimes you're big like that. It's like having a big kid in a classroom where they, might not shove somebody, but gently push him. But it looks like a big old shove. He got the penalty later in the game. And he didn't really stretch his arm out all the way, but he's so strong that a smaller DB on him, just in his natural motion of just pushing to create separation, dude looked like he was shoved, by 4 or 5 people. So that's another added piece that can give Daniel Jones confidence when he throws the football.
Yeah, I didn't want to go too much into refs in this. I mean, when you win 40-6, you don't go too much to refs. But look, if we're going to get this call against Warren all season, they got to take all of Jason Witten's yards away from him in his career, because Jason Witten was picking defenders up and throwing them on the ground and not getting calls against him. If we're going to call little extended arms every time Warren moves out there, come on. I say, Warren, just keep doing it. Dare them to keep calling it on you, because you're the bigger, stronger man in all these situations.
Yeah, I'm going to save my Warren OPI take for studs and duds, because we needed to fill out duds, as you said, Zach. But there are some, and Alan, you know this, there are some letter of the law rules in the NFL that if you really wanted to call it letter of the law, we could have 6.5-hour games if people wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to call that and say letter of the law, okay, yeah, but you can call that 4 dozen times a game. And I'll leave it. Again, I'll leave it for the studs and duds segment. Let's talk about the defense as well, you guys. On paper, I think it was 298 yards. Some of that came in garbage time. Really, the stat that stuck out to me, Alan, was the fact that 0 for 4 in the red zone. I mean, you want a recipe for a blowout. Colts were 6 for 6 on offense, and then defensively 0 for 4. As far as touchdowns are concerned, obviously, I mean that's a big bounce back on both sides, because we talked about maybe one of the limitations of this offense being the red zone offense. They were terrific today. And then when push came to shove, when the Raiders did, and they occasionally moved the ball, it's not like they were completely dominated on that side. The Colts were able to buck up and keep them out of the end zone.
It's sort of like Lou Anarumo said, welcome back to the NFL, Chip Kelly. You didn't do well when you were here before. What makes you think you're going to have success now? But yeah, it was definitely a high point for the defense, because early in the game, Ashton Jeanty looked like he might have a good day. And, there was just no panic in the defense. And they had confidence also that when their back got up against the wall, they were going to be able to make a play. And, I always say to myself, when my team is on defense and the opposing team is driving down, I'm like, okay, all right, just hold them to a field goal.
Yep.
I don't even ask for a turnover. I'm just hold them to a field goal. But again, a sign of a mature team that they realize that, okay, they may get points out of it, but they're not going to get a touchdown. And it has to be a collective belief within the defense. It's the defensive lineman saying, okay, I gotta, try to rush just a teeny bit harder to help out the back end, so they may have a chance to maybe get a pick or something like that. But it's just they rise up at the right time, and it's been evident all year long. At least they've got to be 60, 70 yards away from the red zone for somebody to fall down, I guess.
Right. Yeah, studs and duds in this one. Duds are Mekhi Blackman's cleats these last 2 weeks. We got to fix those up a little bit. But I'll be quick with this. I threw this at the end of our Wednesday show when we were doing our overreactions, underreactions. But I thought people were overreacting a little bit to the Colts' pass defense against the Rams, because Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua are just on a different level when it comes to what they're doing right now. I really think that this Colts defense is on the right track. There are still some holes. There are still some gaps out there, but the communication's getting a lot better. What Lou Anarumo is doing is really good stuff at defensive coordinator. It's not like last year with Gus Bradley where, teams can dink and dunk up the field and the Colts are just going to still run their same thing. Even if the Colts are like this bend don't break this year, the same way this year, it's not bend don't break with little resistance. It's bend don't break, but we're going to give you a lot of resistance with pressure looks, with trap coverages, with man coverage mixed in. We're just tackling well enough to where it's bend don't break, because we're not allowing these big plays after the catch. So I think it's just a really well coached unit, and I think again, by November, by December, this Colts defense is going to be really good. And this was certainly like a step in that right direction. I know Geno Smith's struggling this year, so you don't want to take these huge victory laps because you shut down a bad offense. But look, holding any NFL offense to 6 points is a major win. Coming away with 3 turnovers in this game if you count the block punt. I know that's the special teams one, but 2 turnovers for the defense, 1 for special teams. They just played some really good football. And I got to give a big shout out to that trap coverage call on Blackman's interception. That was all day long. They were peppering those hitches and peppering those quick hitters in the middle of that Tampa 2 zone, the cover 2 zone, to call palms there and just have your corner sell like he's getting depth in that cover 2 and then crashing down on that inside route to get that interception. Fantastic mix up, and that's how you trap quarterbacks when they're trying to do the quick game. So yeah, Lou Anarumo and this defensive staff are really good. I think this defense is going to be in a good place by the end of the season. They just really need to get a couple of areas cleaned up on there, like second linebacker, outside corner still probably needs some work there with the young guys they have. But I think this defense is going in the right direction. These last couple of weeks, I think, have been a good step forward for them.
Yeah, it's a defense that only really needs 2 linebackers, and unfortunately they have 1 right now. So
right.
That's a bit of an issue. Not sure how many duds there were in a 40-6 win, but there were certainly a lot of studs. We're talking studs and duds when we come back on the Colts Squad Show. This portion of the Locked On Colts Squad Show brought to you by Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment, heck, you could pick anything from the first 4 quarters of this game. But I'm going to choose the Colts really slamming their foot on the gas after that opening 3 and out with 6 straight touchdown drives. According to Matt Conti of the Colts communication team, it's the first time since the 2005 season, you got to go back 20 years, that the Colts had 5 or more straight touchdown drives in a single game. And that's Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Edgerrin James and the peak of the peak Colts there in 2005. That's how good they played today. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. And we're back on the Colts Squad Show. Thanks so much for joining us. We are your place to be every post-game right after for game reactions of every Colts game this season. Keep it locked right here on Locked On Colts alongside Alan Pinkin and Zach Hicks. I'm Derek Schultz. We hope to have Jake Arthur later, but we don't know because he's over at Lucas Oil Stadium still gathering audio and doing interviews and everything like that from the Colts' 40-6 win over the Raiders. Let's get the duds out of the way because I think that'll be easier because there's some stud performances that I think we all want to touch on. You know, you had mentioned Mekhi Blackman's legs/cleats. I think we need to throw that on the list. OPI flags on Taylor Warren. I don't know if somebody like clued the league office and said, hey, you got to watch this guy or something. It seems abnormal to me to get 2 of the weakest OPIs that I've ever seen in back-to-back weeks, but certainly something to keep an eye on. But Zach, I mean, if we really want to legitimately say, okay, this person had a bad game, I think it was pretty obvious, maybe because everybody else was so good that Joe Bacci really struggled today.
Yeah, penalties are such a way to highlight yourself in a bad way as a player when you get clear penalties, especially when the play is such a positive for your team. So not even just his play on defense where he had that one play with 2 penalties with the face mask and the tripping, which I had never seen before until later in the game with Mekhi Blackman. He got 2 penalties on one play as well. That was an interesting little thing there. But on the special teams return, I mean, Ashton Dulin had I don't even think he has a kick. I think he has 1 kick return touchdown in his career, and maybe not even 1 to get that wiped off the board there. It's unfortunate. And in a closer game, that's one where you're looking at saying, like, we just can't have these things happen, you know, especially when, again, it's another one of those holds too for the Colts where it's like, that guy wasn't making a play on the ball. He wasn't going to come close to Dulin on that return. It was just something that didn't need to happen. So yeah, if you're really going to put just one player in this spotlight here, Joe Bacci's play on defense, he got taken off the field after that 2 penalty play. And I don't think I saw him the rest of the game on defense. It was a lot of Austin Ajake and Chad Muma the rest of the way there at defense. So yeah, for people saying that like, oh, we want to see accountability for Joe Bacci, like I don't think I saw him on defense the rest of the game. So that was your accountability right there. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest dud. I can't think of anyone else really that was a dud for this Colts team.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It's hard to really pick out a dud. The one thing I will say though is I can tolerate physical mistakes, right. But mental mistakes are the ones that really, give me pause, because you're on that level because you have the intellect to be able to play this game and play it fast. Mistakes are going to happen physically. And, it's not often that it's just a physical reaction to try to trip somebody, only because you got beat. You physically got beat. So you're going to resort to doing whatever you can to stop somebody. That's what caused the trip. I know that Joe Bocci is not looking every week to try and trip somebody. All right. But sometimes you get so frustrated that you just, I'm going to stop him any way I can, and the penalty, he was doing his job, just trying to get hands on the guy, but it's tougher than it looks. Now, would you prefer he not go block the guy at all, or make sure he does his job and go get the guy, but unfortunately get holding? So I'm willing to give a pass on the physical mistakes. Didn't see a lot of mental breakdowns.
Yeah, and if we're going to start off the studs real quick, I want to go to something that's really weird for me, and then you guys can go to our normal subjects when it comes to studs, because everyone on offense, everyone else on defense. But something that's been building in recent weeks for the Colts is just their special teams play overall has just been fantastic. Yeah. I mean, going back to the Titans game, the last 3 weeks, let's just do the last 3 weeks here. They've got 2 blocked kicks, blocked punt, and a blocked field goal against the Titans. They've had their return yardage on kick returns and punt returns increasing each week. We've seen the return yardage for other teams decreasing each week. Nearly had a kick return touchdown in this one. Spencer Schrader was the special teams player of the month to start off the month as well. Now, unfortunately, he suffered that injury today. And then also, I think just a coaching thing to throw out there that I really want to highlight, to give more credit to Brian Mason, his team, is the Colts knew more than the refs when it came to kicking that ball out of bounds after that roughing penalty against Spencer Schrader, where apparently the rule states that it's a certain amount of yardage from where the ball is kicked off and not yardage, like not exactly to the 40-yard line every single time. So the Colts were on top of that. They had their guys up in the booth along with Brian Mason calling that down, saying just kick it out of bounds because they'll get up to 25, force the Raiders to kick a 59-yard kick before the half, and they ended up missing it. And again, like, this was a blowout win, but you never know when those little moments early in games where you're stealing points from opponents can lead to a game just going completely the other way. So just the coaching all around, I think, for the Colts today was fantastic. That drive before the half to have it, 15 seconds left on the clock and score a touchdown. That's exactly how you draw it up. They got it with like 3:30 left, got down and scored with 15 seconds and kicked the ball down to the 25 for the other team. So the coaching overall I thought was great, but Brian Mason and the special teams unit, I think especially these last couple weeks, but today as well, I mean, a block punt changes an entire game. A block punt is how you turn a regular win into a blowout, because you're adding extra points and stealing points from opponents. So yeah, I think just the coaching overall and Brian Mason's unit on special teams have just been fantastic today.
So there are 3 ways you win in the NFL. Number 1 is confidence. And you can tell teams that know they're good go out and they perform with confidence. And that confidence leads to success. The second reason is turnovers. Got to win the turnover battle. Usually teams that win the turnover battle. The third aspect of winning, special teams.
Yep.
Can we get a play or 2 on special teams? If you have those 3 things working for you, you're usually going to end up winning most of the time. And Zach, you're right to give credit to the coaching, because a lot of times in the NFL, the special teams coach is a buddy of the head coaches and might not know a damn thing about coaching. And listen, I remember when I was with the Oilers, the first couple of years, I don't even remember the coach's name. He was so bad. But the special teams coach, it was a lesson in how not to do it. He had a 1-page, like, kickoff return, 1-page presentation. He read off of the presentation. There was no insight or anything like that. And as a result, we go 4-12. The next special teams coach we have, I mean, he would spend 10 minutes watching the center on the punt team, duck his head to make sure, hey, look, if we're going to go offside, we're going to go offside all together. When he ducks his head, if we all go at the same time, and that's insight. And he didn't have 1-page reports or scouting reports on the other team, and we stayed in that meeting an hour instead of 15 minutes. So yes, the coaching in that area is crucial. So good job on Shane Steichen hiring somebody that's competent.
Yeah, and Brian Mason, again, to give him one last bit of credit here before we talk about other players here, Brian Mason is the guy, whenever he has his positional coach or his presser things throughout the week, he starts off with an opening statement that I get the emails, guys. It is 3,000 words long on the trajectory of kicks, on what they could have done better on certain coverages. And like, he is just an encyclopedia of knowledge. And you're seeing it play out this year for the Colts. So big credit to the special teams coach. But to get to other players that were great here, I mean, where do we want to start? Jonathan Taylor, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, great.
DeForest Buckner.
Josh Downs. But,
Josh Downs is
okay,
great.
you know what? I know where I need to go with this. Ashton Doolin stepping
Yes,
into the
exactly.
starting role.
Yeah,
We
that's what I was gonna
literally
say.
had the Ashton Doolin Award prior to the season on a guy who's going to do the little things and step up when called upon. Ashton Doolin took some big hits in this game, had a touchdown taken off the board for him, still bounced back for, 2 big catches in this game, like 50 yards receiving. Everything you want out of wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. You're starting gunner out there as well. But yeah, I mean, everyone was great. Downs was great. Doolin was great. Jones, Taylor, offensive line. The first time the Raiders haven't had a sack in the last 40 games. The Colts held them without a sack in this one. So, man, just a beat. When you win 40-6, everyone's great, for your team. Everyone looks good. The film session is fun on Monday for that one.
Yeah, I wanted to really single out Ashton Doolin because he didn't look like someone who was replacing somebody. He looked like a starter, a full-fledged starter. And there's a mentality behind a starter. Sometimes when you're getting a chance to start for the first time, you press a little bit. You're a little bit nervous, but you're a little high-strung too, and you're so afraid of making a mistake that you can't play free. Ashton Doolin didn't look like that. He looked like he was playing free and loose and just out there to make plays. And so was happy to see that. To me, he was the number one stud. But I got to tell you, that Josh Downs, he might fake you out in the phone booth. He shakes you so bad. Just what a weapon to have. And so all the weapons that Daniel Jones has, it drives the defensive coordinator crazy because you can have the perfect defense, but Josh Downs on a couple of occasions probably should have been stopped, and he spun out of something, or he made a quick move, or he gave up some yards, which is a cardinal sin. You don't ever want to give up yards, but he gave up yards so he could get double that back when he did reverse field. So those are my 2 studs. The whole receiving core, really, because Tyler Warren continues to show his prowess, and just you need to have that big, strong tight end that can knock around defensive backs in the defensive backfield. He's that enforcer that can, let the defense know that this is what we're going to be bringing at your ass all day.
Yeah, I didn't think about Alec Pierce once. I mean, that's how good the receiving room was. That's not a knock on Alec Pierce. It's just that's how good they were. But Josh Downs made a play. I want to say it was on the first touchdown drive, and it was a 3rd and 12. And he caught the ball 5-6 yards maybe, and spun out of a tackle and just kind of squirted through there. And Alan, you played, how deflating that is, right? For a defense where you've got him, or you think you've got him, and then suddenly you don't have him, and it just first down, and it suddenly kind of recycles all over again where you have to get back out there and do it again.
I guess the biggest compliment sometimes is the defender will admit that, yeah, you got me on that one. But when you really know you got them is when they cuss you out and start talking about your mother or something right after you burn their ass. They got something bad to say, and then you just know in the back of your head, you just mad because I just made you look like a fool. I made you drop your drawers on national TV. So
no, I would think, aside from the block punt, I think that play was the defining play of the game for the Colts, because that's the difference between going up 7-3 against an inferior opponent or being tied 3-3, early in the game, where, the Raiders are probably feeling good. They held you to a tie throughout the first quarter and a half of play, but Downs essentially stole points for the Colts with that move. And talk about demoralizing. It's not only demoralizing when you have plays like that, but just any time that you can force a throw short of the sticks on 3rd down and they still convert on you. even though it's like, again, when you're playing these zone coverages, you want them throwing short of the sticks. The whole goal of zone defense is we'll dare you to throw it at the sticks, but if you throw it short, we're going to rally, tackle you short. Whenever they went to Josh Downs, it was either right in between the tightest part of the zone where him and Jones were just on the same page, or it was short of the zone, and he just made a linebacker miss in space, made a corner miss in space, made a safety miss in space, and got to that first down. So Josh Downs, I think, was the most crucial player in this game for the Colts, because the amount of times the Colts were able to convert, as Alan said, 8 to 10 on third downs in this game. What was it? 5 of those probably went to Josh Downs. 5 or 6 of those went to him. He was a huge part, and it's why we have called him first downs ever since he was drafted here. He's been called first downs because look, even if he has some weeks where he gets 2 catches, 3 catches, 4 catches, whatever it is, right? We know that those catches are going to be on third down for a first. That is what he does for this offense. So Josh Downs, it might not be the greatest statistical season for him to start the year. He's not on pace for 1,000 yards like I predicted prior to the season, but his overall impact on the team is irreplaceable. He is so important to what the Colts do on offense, much like how Tyler Warren is, much like how Michael Pittman Jr. is. All these guys are vitally important because they are just fantastic role players. And Downs' role is just to get those first downs, even if he has to give up some yards, as Alan says. But when a guy does it, it's like what you say in basketball. It's like we don't really encourage fadeaway jumpers for 2 or something. It's an inefficient shot. But if Michael Jordan's doing it, it's not that inefficient, And so it's like that. Downs is retreating here. We know he's going to get the first down. It's cool. He can do it. Get us those first downs.
Yeah, and I think Josh Downs' play is just a reflection of the Colts' offensive system. In that it's not a lot of stats, not a lot of flash, but you look up and there's 40 points on the board.
Right.
I'm going to make.
I was going to say, when everybody eats, nobody complains. You know, when everybody, as long as you're winning, if everyone eats, nobody complains.
I was trying to think of. I was racking my brain. I'm like, who do the Colts kind of remind that receiving room? What does it remind me of, in Colts history, which is hard to do because they've had Hall of Fame level receivers, and they probably don't have that one in that room. I have a comp that has some connective tissue to Indianapolis, but not necessarily the Colts. And we're going to come back with that when we return. It's the Colts Squad Show on the Locked On Colts Network. Stick around. This portion of the Colts Squad Show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel lets me customize my betting experience how I see fit. Today, I saw some lines that were interesting, including a very banged-up Baltimore team as a virtual pick'em against a desperate Houston team, and I think Houston might have been getting 1.5 or giving. I think they were giving 1.5. And look, I'm not always right? Nobody is, but it just felt like the Texans were the play. And it's not a hindsight is 2020 thing. I have the receipts on this. I did the Houston money line play. Boom, that paid off with me. I mean, I wish I would have done the alternate line and put the Texans by 30 because that's kind of how the game went. That's the beauty of FanDuel, though. I can make every game more exciting whenever I feel like it, and that's what I did today with Texans and Ravens, and it's quick and easy with the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Back for a final time here on the Locked On Colts Squad Show alongside Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, Alan Pinkett, former NFLer, Notre Dame legendary running back. I'm Derek Schultz. Thanks so much for joining us. So I said I was trying to come up with a connection or a comp, if you will, and I found a connection. Now, I understand, Zach, you are firmly kind of a football watcher. I think you like NHL as well. Mm-hmm. Alan, I'm not sure how much NBA you watch, but I know we have a lot of cross-pollination here between Colts fans who are also Pacers fans. And to me, what that room does, you mentioned Josh Downs and how critical he is, or you mentioned Ashton Dulin and how critical he is, or Michael Pittman Jr., how critical, Alec Pierce. It's Aaron Nesmith, it's TJ McConnell, it's that Obi Toppin, it's that level of guys. Individually, you wouldn't look at Obi Toppin and be like, oh my God, we really got to worry about that guy. Or Andrew Nemhard and be like, oh my God, we really got to. But collectively, they just enhance all of each other's skills, it feels like. And they're working schematically now in a way that we have never seen them work together before. And I think in large part, it's because you have a competent and accurate quarterback, which is something that just the Colts have not had over the past couple of years. And Steichen is able to, no one has ever questioned it as much as we have. Certainly Shane Steichen has been questioned in this town the last 2.5 years. I don't think anybody has questioned that the guy knows offense, right? And he knows buttons to press and things like that. And I just think that he is maximizing all of their talents right now. And it reminds me of watching the Pacers a little bit, just how on the same page and how good they are in situations. I'm going to go to this guy, I'm going to that guy, and you can rely on all of them seemingly.
Yeah, no, it's a great comp because that's kind of what the Pacers were last year. This very deep team that made a run to the finals because, yes, they had the star talent in Halliburton, and then Siakam is also just this longtime star. Michael Pittman Jr. is kind of like the Siakam, I guess, in this thing where it's like he's still like, a Pro Bowl level player and stuff, and he's a guy that you can run the offense through if you need, but it's so much about the pieces. This thing doesn't work if one of the pieces is missing. And honestly, we saw it against the Rams a little bit when Alec Pierce wasn't out there, that it was like, oh, okay, it drops off a little bit. But this week they went to a different guy in Ashton Doolin, who's just a pro's pro, a guy who's been doing this for a long time, and it just got right back on pace. So yeah, it's just a group that is so good together. And Al and I, from the Washington area, looking back in the day, I wasn't alive then, but the Fun Bunch, the Fun Bunch was that unit in the NFL where it's like, yeah, you have Art Monk. Art Monk is, elite, one of one type player, but it's a group that was so defined by everybody around them. And that's why they won all those Super Bowls with different quarterbacks back then with Washington. Yeah. And this isn't even to say, again, like, I never want to say anything bad about Daniel Jones because he is the point guard in this situation. He's the Halliburton in the Pacers thing, and he's the Theismann and all them in the Fun Bunch one. But it makes your life so easy when you have such a good play caller in Shane Steichen who knows how to get these guys open and knows how to isolate these guys in situations that worked for them. And also these guys can just do their job so well. Josh Downs knows he doesn't have to go out here and run vertical balls. He's not going to be, catching seam shots vertically down the field. Alec Pierce knows that he's not going to be one-on-one in the slot against a linebacker running, these little ins and outs that Downs runs. These guys know what they have to do on offense, and they're operating in those roles at a high level. And honestly, you have to give these guys credit, much like to your point here, Derek, about the Pacers, where it's like, you don't get this unless everyone buys into their role.
There you go.
That is the biggest part of this equation here is guys have to buy into, hey, Josh Downs, you might not be a 1,000-yard receiver this year, but you are our most crucial player on third down. Michael Pittman Jr., you might not hit those 1,000 yards that you've hit the last couple of years, but you're our go-to guy in the red zone. You're our go-to guy in a lot of situations, and there will be games you hit 100 yards. Alec Pierce, you might get 50 targets total this year, but you might get 900 yards because you're just everything's vertical. So it's like these guys have to buy into that and buy into doing the dirty work. Like we saw Ashton Doolin today, taking big hits, blocking at a high level, running off safeties on a lot of plays. They have to buy into all this stuff. And I mean, gosh, they've a plus 74 point differential this year. I think guys are buying into the things that's working this year.
Well, I like the comp that you came up with the Pacers. That was spot on. Because I know when I watched the playoffs this year, I didn't know who any of these guys were, but damn it, they could make some plays. Yeah. And at the end of the day, what did they do? Win. And if it wasn't for the Achilles tear, you might have a trophy in Indianapolis. You might have been going to another parade. But the buy-in is so crucial, and it brings up a question in my head. Would AJ Brown like being in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody would at this one. But I think, it kind of reminds me of all the things we used to say about like the 49ers offense when they went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. And they had just this outstanding receiver core. They had the George Kittle. They had running backs that could just get big plays. Now, their defense was probably a little bit better than what the Colts defense is right now when they had all those studs up front. But just in terms of just like having so many weapons to throw at you at all times, like it's fantastic, man. So yeah, it's really fun to see. These guys are all bought in. The offensive line's playing well. You have the superstar running back as well, which makes life so much easier having him back there. And then, I mean, even if we want to do mention the Colts defense here, I think this is a different Colts defense as well, just in terms of their aggressiveness, their opportunistic nature that they have this year. What are the Colts turnover differential this year? I know they took a step back last week, but they went back plus 2 or 3 this week, so they're probably back to being like +7 on the year, +6 on the year, which is how you win football games. So yeah, this Colts team is just a well-oiled machine. And again, like they'll run into some backsteps, some issues like they did against the Rams, where they don't win every game this year. But I think they're just a comfortable team where you say, like, if they're playing an inferior opponent, they're going to win. And then they're going to give you your best shot each and every Sunday, no matter who you are. So it's a good football team. It's a different Colts team. There's a different air about this Colts team this year.
Well, the Colts end up with today? 2 turnovers?
2, if you count the block kick as a third
3.
one, but
okay,
yeah,
so
2
3,
or 3.
3 would put them at +6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
+6 for the season.
It's how you win football games. It's how you do it.
Yeah. And winning, like I said, early in the year, winning solves a lot of problems. And, when you figure out how to win, it's infectious, it's contagious, and you want to keep doing whatever it is. Sometimes you get a little superstitious when you win so many in a row, but it's such a great feeling of accomplishment, because the amount of work that goes into one football game, the amount of study, the amount of blitz pickup you have to do as a player, and the opposing team may run that blitz one time, but you spent 2 days on how to block the blitz. Just the amount of consumption of information you have to have just to try to win a game. It's so satisfying. But the way that the Colts are doing it in such a way where everybody eats, it's even more satisfying. It sort of supports that, it's not me, it's the team, this type of thing. And 11 is greater than 1. In basketball for the Pacers, 5 is greater than 1. So that whole team concept has definitely come into play and is helping this team out. But you also, when you win, some of those personal accolades come about because they don't want to give it to somebody who's losing. So if you take care of the team, you'll take care of yourself.
Guys, let's close with this because I have it as the last bullet here. And it was a storyline today, even though obviously it was completely overshadowed by a positive one in the 40-6 win. But Shane Steichen, Zach, alluded to the fact that A.D. Mitchell was going to be handled, and clearly he was handled, right? He was active today. There was some question whether that was going to happen, but just one target. I don't know how many snaps he played, but it wouldn't have been many. Do we now see things return to normalcy, or did he maybe lose his spot here with Doolin playing so well as his replacement?
I'm sure he'll eventually get back into his isolation man coverage role. Doolin will get back into his role where blocking receiver that can do a little bit with the ball in his hands, do a lot of the little things. So I think things will normalize, but I will say we've seen with this Colts team all year, and again, this is a testament to how mature of a team they are. They've held guys accountable all season long. It's not just A.D. Mitchell. It's Cameron McGrone, a guy who got starter snaps in the first week or two of the year, is no longer on the team because he struggled in those snaps. Joe Bocci today pulled out of the game when he had that big mistake on defense. This Colts team is not playing around when it comes to accountability, and we saw it today. And I like that the Colts did this because it's not really about punishing A.D. Mitchell. It's about them saying, you know what, Ashton Doolin has been a pro's pro ever since he stepped foot in this league, and we need to win games right now. And we can't really deal with the volatility right now with A.D. Mitchell in this starting role. And a guy like Ashton Doolin, yeah, you might lose a little bit when it comes to winning against man coverage, but it's not like Doolin is some slouch back there. He's a good player. And I think that this is just kind of, it's like when the Colts went to Daniel Jones over Anthony Richardson. It's like, we can't live with your highs and lows right now. We need a guy who's ready to go out there and help us win. And they went with Doolin over Mitchell, and Doolin did what Jones did to Richardson, where he got in there, showed what he can do, and did some good things out there. So I like it. I like it. I like the accountability of it. I like showing that nobody else is above the team. And again, it's not necessarily a punishment to A.D. Mitchell. It's more so Doolin gives us the baseline of what we need to win this game. So we got to get Doolin out there. And that's the way I saw it. And it obviously led to some good things with Doolin having a fantastic game out there.
Yeah, so I was in Dollar General this week, and there happened to be a guy with an Indianapolis Colts shirt on. So I went up and spoke to him, talking about the podcast. And the first thing out of his mouth we need to fire AD Mitchell. I mean, the fans are still hot over that. But what I saw out of him was he's taken account. I understand that he stood up before the team and explained, or asked for forgiveness. And it's just like a kid. When you punish a kid, you can't change your mind the next day and say, okay, you can watch TV now. I said a week, it's going to be a week. And he understands accountability. And this is just something that has to be done. But I think what it's going to do is teach him how to be a better pro. And when he becomes a better pro, then he'll start doing those ancillary things that you see Alec Pierce doing.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, then he won't last long as a pro, right?
Exactly.
Not for long.
I've seen people get cut for less.
Yeah, but I think it was a good message to be like, look, Doolin has earned this. He's earned this his entire career. A guy who can go out there and do these things for us. So sit back and watch what Doolin does. You are ahead of Doolin when it comes to winning against man coverage. We know that. But look what he does each and every play out there. Learn from him and be better going forward. But until you're better, until you have shown and earned that trust back, Ashton Doolin has earned this every single day, his entire career. So I kind of like the message that sends, and I think that's good when you're a winning team to be able to do that and still win games like this.
It'll still be something to obviously keep an eye on moving forward here. But the Colts are moving on to the Cardinals next week after a 40-6 win over the Raiders. Thanks so much for joining us on the Colts Squad Show. We are your place for live game recaps following each and every Colts game this season. We'll have a Wednesday show too, a standing Wednesday show, 9 p.m. So join us for that. We'll be back with you middle of this week to recap the injury report and the first practice of the week and get you set for a sneaky, decent Arizona team that looks like they're going to move to 3-2 because they're on the free space this week playing the Titans. Until then, follow us at Locked On Colts on socials and check out our other great content on YouTube and TikTok. And we'll see you next time right here on the Squad Show.